Great. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining our first Buenos Dias webinar and Datos committee meeting. I'm sorry that we couldn't do it in person. We switched it last minute to fully online, but I'm really happy that everyone was able to join, and I'd like to introduce our incredible guest speaker, Dr. Sybil Francis, President and CEO of the Center for the Future of Arizona. And she'll be giving us a presentation on the findings of their most recent Gallup Arizona survey. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Francis.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Catalina. I'm so thrilled to be here. I want to say a big thank you to your fearless leader, Monica, who is joining us from the airport in Orlando, bless her heart. She had the opportunity, we were thrilled to host her with our group, the Center for the Future of Arizona, last week, along with Catalina, and just so excited to hear firsthand your Datos report, and just congratulations on all that work. So it's a really thrilling collaboration between our two organizations, and I think we can actually build on that really greatly, especially around the data issues. Monica and I were just talking about how important data is to decision making and policy and investments and to the business community. And so just this effort to really get data out there to drive decision making is so important. So I'm so honored and thrilled to be before you all today. I am also really pleased. I know I can't see the names of the attendees, but I know that our staff person, Orlando Cazares, who is on our staff but used to be with the Hispanic Chamber, is joining us today, and I'm thrilled that he's able to do that. So thank you so much. I am the president and CEO of the Center for the Future of Arizona, and we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan 501c3 organization. We have very close ties to Arizona State University. And someone just said to me yesterday, I need to debunk myths. We are not an ASU entity. Despite our very close ties to ASU, I'm the wife of the current president of Arizona State University, and I am the co-founder nearly 20 years ago with Dr. Laddie Kaur, who's the former president of ASU, of the Center for the Future of Arizona. So yes, we have very strong ties to ASU, but we are an independent entity. My own background is in public policy. I worked in the Congress, in the White House for many years in Washington, D.C. before coming to Arizona. And so really had an interest in becoming part of the community of Arizona when I moved here, and contributing my own perspective and talent and skills and desire to be part of this community when I moved here. So I was thrilled that Laddie Kaur had this idea to create an organization that was really committed to creating a stronger and brighter future for our state. And so it was his brainchild, but we got started almost 20 years ago. And really, let me just share my screen so that I can kind of talk through this with some visuals here. Okay, it's just going to take me a moment. There we go. That worked so well. So our mission really, as we grapple with this idea of how do we give back to Arizona? How do we create a stronger and brighter future for our state? We really our mission really is to bring Arizonans together to build a stronger and brighter future for our state. And we do that in a number of ways. One of the main ways we do that is to listen to what matters most to Arizonans. So we have various ways of listening, and our Gallup partnership that I'm going to talk about is one of the really important ways that we do that. So we listen to what matters most to Arizonans. We share trusted data about what Arizonans want, but beyond that, also how we're doing in those areas. And I'll say more about that in a minute. We identify key issues that kind of bubble up from these data that we find, and we also partner with leaders and communities across the state. So as I said, I'm thrilled to be in front of you all because you are the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which is, has such importance for our state, and as well as the Datos Committee. And as I may have already mentioned, we're data geeks like you all, so it's really thrilling to to be amongst people who understand the value of data to our community and to our economic outlook and to our educational outcomes. So our mission is to bring Arizonans together. We listen to Arizonans, share trusted data, identify issues, and work with partners and communities across the state. I mentioned that we also, from our listening, have a very strong understanding of what Arizonans want. And we've created this concept called the Arizona We Want, which is a shared vision of success around what matters most to Arizonans and that expresses their highest aspirations and hopes for the future. So we advance the Arizona We Want. We have a very positive agenda based on what Arizonans want and based in data. And the way we talk about how we're doing as a state, if we know what Arizonans want, we feel the need to be able to share back to Arizonans and say, this is how we're doing in the areas that matter to you. So we developed, oops, I went too far ahead. We developed the Arizona Progress Meters. And these are ways to really kind of crystallize the data around the key areas of interest to Arizonans in a manageable way, in a kind of so it's somewhat curated data, because we know there's a lot of data out there, but how do we make it usable to people so they can quickly look at it and also bring it to their communities and to their organizations and to their businesses to make decisions. So if you go to our website and you click on any of these icons, you'll see a limited set of data that really help paint a picture about how we're doing in each of these areas. I'll point to the education one because that's really the most advanced, if you will. So we have 8 to 10 metrics in our education progress meter that really give a snapshot of where we are in each phase of the educational kind of pipeline of Arizona. And we have very in-depth data associated with those metrics that schools are able to dig into to see how their school is doing, let's say in 3rd grade reading or 8th grade math or college going. And you can go to that information and see how you're doing in your community, or you can look statewide. And so these are really tools that we use for communication as well as for decision making. And so we have these other progress meters as well. In the education one, we've broken it down, the data in different ways, including by demographics, by income level, and other ways. And you can see in there that we do have some challenges as a state that we need to address. So our center developed this concept of the Arizona We Want, which is a really big agenda. We have chosen to take on pieces of that agenda that we think are absolutely core to the future of our state. So our model is we have the Arizona We Want. We share data with interested communities and leaders and businesses across the state to give them the tools they need to advance on an agenda that they want to advance. But we also have said we want to contribute ourselves kind of on the ground work in education, workforce, and civic engagement. So we have very deep partnerships across the state in all these areas, and you can see our programs listed there in the blue box. I won't go through each of these, but just to give you a flavor, in education, we believe, as I'm sure as business leaders, you agree with this, that leadership matters in schools. We do talk a lot about teachers, and teachers are absolutely critical. But imagine if you're a teacher in a school that doesn't have good school leadership, you can be the best teacher in the world, but you will get burned out, you will get discouraged, you won't be able to do your job. So we're very, very much focused on that leverage point, which is the school leader. And we have trained hundreds of school leaders across the state, and we're actually expanding this program, and we really hope to be fully statewide and touch every school if we can. Through our various school initiatives, including our personalized learning network, our Arizona Pathways to Prosperity, we have touched over 300,000 students in our programs, impacted 14,000 teachers. And we also partner with industry partners across our state, especially in our Arizona Pathways to Prosperity initiative, which is trying to create better links between the K-12 schools, post-secondary, and employers. So we go to employers in high demand, high wage jobs and say, what does a well-prepared employee look like to you? And we back map that into their educational pipeline. And one of the key ways that we do our work, in fact, is to bring various partners together. So I think that's one of our strengths, I would say. So we have brought K-12 partners together with community college partners together with employers to have these conversations about what do we need to do to create stronger pipelines, career opportunities and pipelines for students, including career counseling and career exploration early on in their lives. So that's really a quick overview of the Center for the Future of Arizona. And now what I want to do is move on to what the real topic of today is, which is our learnings from our partnership with the Gallup organization. So I mentioned that we listen to Arizonans to find out what matters most to them. And that's really what underlines the Arizona we want, that overarching concept that I mentioned. So we think that the best way to find out what Arizonans want is to actually ask them. And that's exactly what we did when we partnered with the Gallup organization. We partnered with Gallup for the first time 10 years ago, which is really what led to the Arizona we want. And again, after about 10 years, this is a very robust survey, so it's not some quick and dirty snapshot like you see with some of these polls and surveys. But it's really in-depth question to Arizonans about what matters most to them and what they think we need to do as a state to create a stronger and brighter future for our state. So these are very robust. Very robust surveys that really have long-lasting impact that we can use for many years in terms of building an agenda for Arizona. But it really is intended to identify what matters most to Arizonans across a very broad range of critical issues. This particular survey we conducted in the late summer and fall of 2020. And it's a scientifically valid, randomized survey. And so that means that it is representative of Arizonans. We're especially proud of the fact, and it was very important to us to make sure that we heard from voices that might not usually be heard, or that whose voices may not come through as strongly in surveys. So we oversampled in rural areas because of the small base of the community there, as well as in communities of color. So when I say that this is what Arizonans believe, you can trust the fact that this is representative of what Arizonans believe. We had 80 questions covering a very broad range of topics. That's actually a lot of questions for a survey, and we were so thrilled at the huge response we got and the number of people who got through the entire survey. 80 questions is a lot, but when you're covering a broad range, you can never ask too many questions in any one area. So for example, if we had 8 to 10 areas that we were asking about, that's only 7 or 8 questions, let's say, to cover education. So we asked very important questions, but it was across a broad range of issues. And we did issue the survey in both English and Spanish to make sure that we got good responses and representative responses. So kind of the aha moment, which was quite amazing, and I think really is stunning to many people if you consider, our national narrative of division and polarization and, the despair that we have around that feeling. What is encouraging and perhaps surprising to some is that we actually agree on much more than we disagree across our entire state. We identified 7 shared public values, and I'm going to be walking through those with you, on which 70% or more of Arizonans agree. And so you cannot get to 70% agreement without strong support across our entire state, across income levels, education levels, race or ethnicity, or political affiliation. So these are very robust findings and really should be encouraging to us. And in many ways, I see the Center for the Future of Arizona as kind of an insurgency against negativity, an insurgency against the idea that we are divided as a society, and that we actually have common ground on which we can come around to make change. Am I naive? Do our numbers show that we agree on absolutely everything? Absolutely not. And so we are focused on where we agree. I mean, I can share information with you in areas that we might not agree so much, but really my focus is on those areas of agreement and how do we build public will around change? How do we, even more importantly, help people internalize this idea that we are much more in agreement so that we can create that opportunity for change? So the major findings are across all the major issues, and these really are an outline of the 7 shared public values. And so Arizonans believe that an educated and skilled population is important to our state, and they want a strong education system. They want quality healthcare that is accessible and affordable and includes pre-existing conditions. They want good paying jobs, as well as the education and training needed to help everyone participate in our economy and in the success of our state. Arizonans want sustainable practices that sustain our quality of life and help conduct business in a way that works for everyone and protects everyone's health. We want a democracy that works. We want to solve problems, and we want to be able to build on our sense of civic engagement. We want equity for all people and a fair and just system. And we want comprehensive immigration reform, including a pathway to citizenship and support for dreamers. So those are what we call our 7 shared public values. They're also, we are very much, I should have maybe mentioned that we are a do tank. Laddie Kaur, my partner, coined the term do tank for the Center for the Future of Arizona. So how do we take this information and turn it into action? Well, we built that into our survey, and we asked Arizonans what actions they would support at this high level of agreement at 70% or more to advance these shared public values. And so we came up with, we found 42 actions that Arizonans agreed on that needed to be taken. One thing I want to make clear is when we say the actions needed, we're not talking about only one sector. It's not about political leadership only. It's not about just the business community. It's not about nonprofits. It's really everyone involved. So we're kind of agnostic about who's taking the action, but we did identify these actions. So this is just a flavor of the types of actions that are supported at a very high level. So when I say 70% or above, you can see some of these are way higher than 70%. So you can see that Arizonans overwhelmingly support over 40 actions. 92% of Arizonans are very concerned about the need for highly qualified teachers and principals in schools. This is almost a universal recognition. Area in mental health, there was a great recognition that mental health services are not available or affordable for many Arizonans, and there was great concerns around that. Transition to clean energy, highly supported, and I'm going to go into some of these in a little bit more detail. Arizonans want to be able to vote in multiple ways over multiple periods of time, and they want their voting to be convenient and counted. So, there's huge support for the kind of system that we've already had and to even make it more accessible. Interest in supporting prisons and focusing more on rehabilitation than punishment. And 86% of Arizonans support comprehensive immigration reform that includes a pathway to citizenship, including for dreamers. So it was very important to us to make sure that we asked about that issue. So we know what Arizonans want. We identified 7 shared public values. We have 42 actions that Arizonans support to move those shared public values forward. It is true that we do have gaps between what Arizonans want and where we want to be. And so it was important to us to understand those a little bit better. And so what we wanted to do was ask Arizonans about their outlook on various aspects of our system that we asked about. So for example, in education, Arizonans believe in a strong education system, and yet only about 1 in 4 agree that our K-12 public education is high quality. Some people push back on me on that. It makes them uncomfortable. I'm not saying whether that's a fair assessment or not. However, if you look at our education progress meter data, you will see huge gaps. And so my theory is that people understand that we have these huge gaps to fill, and they're wondering why we're not able to do that. 60% of Arizonans are satisfied with the quality of health care they receive. So 60% sounds, pretty good. When you think about issues, you think, well, if you get more than 50% on something, that's pretty good. But if you translate the 40% who do not report that they think they have quality, accessible healthcare, that's 2 million Arizonans who are feeling left out. Very interesting to look at this data in terms of income levels. So Arizonans earning less than $60,000 a year have all sorts of ways in which they are not feeling that they're living the life that we believe that all Arizonans should enjoy. But one of the key things that really leapt out at us, and that I think might be of interest to employers, is that only 46% of Arizonans earning less than $60,000 a year are satisfied with the opportunities for furthering their education or training as a way to also advance their careers. Broadband and internet access has been very much, of course, in the news because of the pandemic and how reliant our students became on access to broadband internet when they were doing online schooling. So only 55% of residents in rural areas have access to what they need in order to, not just for their education, but if you think about it, the people who may need that for their employment. So this is really a glaring area of need. We asked about childcare and the impact of the cost or availability of childcare, and 27% of Arizonans with children say that is prohibiting them from going back to work or school. And then finally, our survey was conducted in the late summer and fall of 2020 after a summer of racial reckoning. And it was important to us to ask people their views on race relations and experiences of racism. Only 28% of Arizonans agree that race relations are good in our state and see that really as an area of opportunity for improvement. So those are some of the actions that Arizonans, these are some of the ways in which Arizonans are experiencing life that we need to be aware of as we think about the Arizona we want and our shared public values. How do we move so that we've got better satisfaction in these areas? So now what I want to do is turn to a few of the shared public values areas and just dig into the data just a little more. Before I do that, I did want to say that I'm sure many of you are curious about the responses of the Latino community to our survey. As I said, we did ensure that we were well covered in that area so that we could speak with confidence. I think what was very interesting to me was in terms of the outcomes, there was a lot of, on the shared public values, I guess by definition, in many ways, those were areas that our Hispanic community also felt were important. So where there's some interesting, so there was a lot of similarities in responses from the Latino community to the broader community, but where there are some differences, I'll point those out. They're not necessarily all of them, but I wanted to make sure to sort of highlight some of those. So in education, I'm just putting some numbers behind some of these things. So 84% of Arizonans believe that we need a highly educated and skilled population, and that's good for our state's economy. That may seem obvious to many of you, but if you look at our policy and our funding of K-12, and even in higher ed, one could ask oneself if that is being reflected in our policies. So it's just, I think, important to point out that Arizonans very strongly understand the importance, and I already mentioned that their concerns about the K-12 system. I mentioned our education progress meter, and so this is the kind of a sample of the types of data that you can find when you go to our website and click on the education progress meter. So in the education progress meter, down the left-hand side, you can see all the metrics that we use to report on. And I should say that these were not metrics that the Center for the Future of Arizona came up with all by ourselves. We believe that everything we do should be in partnership with others so that it creates credibility and legitimacy for what we're doing. That this is not what the Center for the Future of Arizona staff people and leadership think, but this is really what the community believes. So some years ago, we partnered with an organization called Expect More Arizona that has now been kind of transformed into something called Education Forward Arizona. But we brought together scores of educational entities and people interested in education to say, what are the metrics that really provide the best snapshot about how we're doing in Arizona? And these were the ones that we came up with. As you can see, we can break down these data by race and ethnicity. We also could break it down by income level and others. I just decided to show you this one. But, you know, just as a potential little bit of insight into why there might be some questions about how well our K-12 system is delivering. Why don't we look at third grade reading here, that second set of metrics. So for all of Arizona, 35% of third graders are reading at grade level, which is nothing to write home about. It's actually a bit concerning. But then if you look across and you look at the various breakdowns in race and ethnicity, you can see huge variations. And some of them are really of concern and are even bigger gaps in our outcomes that we need to think about. And so I think these are the kind of data that we can look at a statewide level. And as I mentioned, also, you can go in and look at your school or district community level and see where your school fits in with these data. And then that can help you meanwhile to think about, well, where should we put our work? I'll look at the post-high school enrollment or post-secondary attainment here, just as another example. We have 46% of Arizonans who've attained some kind of post-secondary degree, whether it's university, four-year degree, community college, technical school. We have set as a state in this collaborative process that the Center for the Future of Arizona was already engaged in 60% as a goal. And, you know, that's what people who understand how our economy works understand to be the minimum number or percentage of our population that needs some kind of post-secondary degree for us to be thriving and for us to attract employers with high wage, high demand jobs and that we have the employees ready to go for that. And as you can see on the right, there's goals that were set in the process that I just described by bringing relevant communities together to ask them what they believe. Okay, so why am I not being able to advance all of a sudden? Okay, my apologies. All of a sudden, for some reason, I'm not able to advance my screen. That's very weird. Just give me a moment.
Dr. Francis,
Yes.
try the left or the right arrow on the bottom of your screen.
Oh, I think I just did that. Okay, hopefully that will work going forward because something funny just happened. You know, this Zoom world is really crazy. You never know when it's going to get to you. Okay, so here are some of the actions, as I mentioned, that Arizonans support at 70% or above, and actually the percentages are on the right, for improving our education system. And I already addressed the highly qualified teachers and principals. You know, Arizonans understand that it's important to increase the number of graduates. You know, I just showed you the goal. We need to go from 46% to 60%, and Arizonans are on board with that. We need reliable internet for all students, not to mention businesses and other entities that rely on internet, especially, you know, in rural areas. It's lack of access. In urban areas, much of it is not so much access, but the cost of internet. We need to close those gaps. Not only do we need to improve everyone overall, but we need to close those gaps so that we have equitable outcomes and students of every demographic succeeding at the levels that we need to be successful as a state. The pandemic definitely highlighted some of the challenges of our school schedules with working parents. So that needs to be, Arizonans believe we need to take a look at that. And I'm not going to talk through every one of these, but yes, Arizonans do support more investment in public education and meeting every child where they are. So how do we tailor the learning so that every student can succeed? I said that I would mention some areas that some of the Latino responses leapt out at us as somewhat stronger in some way. So there was even stronger agreement among the Latino population that we need quality preschool available for families, and that very high understanding in the Latino community about the importance of increasing the number of Arizona high school graduates who enroll in some kind of post-secondary education. So those are huge numbers and very encouraging. So let me move a little bit more quickly through some of the other topics. I wanted to kind of dwell on education because I know it's very important to us as a state and to the Latino community in particular. But so for health and well-being, there's still concern, and this has been years, and this is not just an Arizona issue, but it's a national issue that Arizonans want healthcare without breaking the bank, without breaking their bank. And only 60% of Arizonans feel that the quality of the healthcare they receive is high. And as I mentioned, that leaves 2 million Arizonans who don't rank it that way. Huge issues with wait time to see a healthcare provider. Only 40% of Arizonans are satisfied with that. Also, it's clear that people are being strained from a cost perspective. Only 38% are satisfied that their costs are manageable for them. And we also had very clear indicators that, of course, we've heard in the press for some time now, but that the availability of mental health care providers is not good across the state. And if you break that down into rural areas, you'll see that it's even tougher. I think it's only 17% of rural residents said they had access to the mental health care they needed. I think breaking things down by income level is also very instructive. We asked about whether people felt they lived in a healthy community, if their community was safe, it was easy for them to get healthy food or to get exercise. It's literally a step function, from lower income to higher income about satisfaction in that. So that's pretty stark. So it's very clear that people earning under $36,000 a year are not nearly as satisfied. If you look at feeling that they live in a safe community, only 51% of people earning under $36,000 feel they live in a safe community. So these are some of the action items that Arizonans support in the health and well-being arena. And I'll just let you take a look at that briefly. I already touched on some of these. I don't think I need to walk through every one of them. The one that kind of leaps out at me a little bit is this telemedicine. There's great support, and I think the legislature has taken some action to solidify some of the gains made in terms of offering telemedicine to people that became popular in the pandemic. But I just thought that was an interesting one to point out, given that it's a relatively new phenomenon. Okay, so jobs and economic opportunity. Good paying jobs was one of the top 3 issues that came out of this survey. Education, jobs, and healthcare really, are always the things that are important to people. One of the things we did, because it was during COVID, we asked if people had lost jobs due to COVID. And, this is one way to slice this data. And you can see the value of a post-secondary degree in this time of stress. So people who had post-secondary degrees or certificate, 8% of them reported losing their jobs due to COVID, but 17% of those without a post-secondary degree or certificate reported on that. We asked people, and this is broken down by income level, various questions about how they were experiencing work and how satisfied they were on work leave policies, opportunities to grow careers, equal pay and equal opportunities, opportunities to advance their education or training in Arizona, which is of course very important in terms of advancing your career, and work benefits. There are big gaps. Even I was somewhat surprised at how big these gaps were based on earnings 60,000 or below, which is, as you know, is about the median income in Arizona, versus 60,000 or above. I mean, opportunities to grow your career in Arizona, that's a 20 percentage point gap in terms of satisfaction. And so I think these are really these numbers kind of got my attention, and I think it just goes, it may help explain some of the things going on in our in the employment market as well. I mentioned cost of childcare being important to Arizonans, and this is an interesting chart. One thing that got my attention on this chart was that even high income above 120,000, 15% of people earning 120,000 more said the cost of childcare was preventing them from going back to work or school, which I don't know exactly how to explain, but it's not an insignificant number. One expects that in the lower income levels, that could be the case as well, but it was just interesting that it was as high as it was in that income level. Oops. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so on environment and sustainable future, recall that the shared public value was we Arizonans support a sustainable way of living that protects our environment and our sustainable way of life. Sorry, here's the advance. So we did break this down by Hispanic versus the overall report, overall responses. The gaps aren't huge, but I think what struck me about this was in every single categories, the Latino population answered at higher levels. Their belief that we need to reduce heat islands, that we need to spend more to prevent forest fires, that we need to protect our spaces, our outdoor spaces and parks. We need to protect our natural areas and wildlife. We need to protect our rural water supplies. We need to transition to clean energy and improve air quality. It was very striking to me that in every one of these categories, there was, if you look at transition to clean energy, that's a 9-point difference, which I thought was really interesting and encouraging. So I just thought that was a fascinating chart. Okay, civic engagement and leadership. As I mentioned, Arizonans, they want our systems. They want early voting, in-person voting, ranked choice, which is a complicated idea to explain. But again, look at this, the differences in the Hispanic community responses versus overall were striking, I thought. Sending all registered voters a ballot by mail, look at that, 12 percentage points higher in the Latino community in terms of wanting that. Big gap as well, big demand, if you will, for same-day voter registration in the Latino community. All of these. So I thought this was also a really telling and interesting set of data. So immigration reform was the last major area that we asked about, and across the board, huge support for pathway to citizenship, for immigration reform, pathway to citizenship, including for Dreamers, 86%. And I think what's interesting about that, if you think about the gap again between what Arizonans want and what we have, there is a big gap between what Arizonans want, and frankly, nationally, these numbers are, I'd love to say that this is, or maybe I don't love to say, but this is not a unique result in Arizona. There's national support amongst the Americans for this, but we're still not getting that out of our political system. So I just think and this is not necessarily something that can be accomplished at the state level per se. So this really is maybe more of a federal issue, but I just thought it was interesting. This is sometimes the point where I like to say and point out, we do agree on a lot of things in Arizona, but we don't necessarily agree on everything. So we did ask about other things like building the wall, deportation of people who are here illegally, and other issues like that. And there was much more division there. And so, when we say there's strong support for something, we're focused on the area where there's strong support, because we think that that's where we can build public will, political consensus, an agenda for change. But as I said, I didn't want to seem naive and to say that we agree on absolutely everything. So So I've walked you through some of these shared public values, the data that we have, the actions, the gap between what Arizonans want and what we have. And this is kind of a summary slide that again shows you the 7 shared public values that we identified and the 42 actions. And of course, I'm not going to go through this whole list, but this is really the foundation of an agenda for Arizona that we have developed. And again, this is not based on what the Center for the Future of Arizona thinks should be our agenda, but it's really what Arizonans have told us matter to them. And so where do we go from here? I said, we're a do tank. We do more than do these studies and reports. We want action. And so what we do know is that there's no single entity, no single person, no organization, leader or agency who is either responsible or even has the capability to drive this forward themselves. But it's really about coming together. And as I mentioned, our mission as the Center for the Future of Arizona is to bring Arizonans together to create a stronger and brighter future for our state. And so what we really do is we do several things. I said we listen to Arizonans to see what matters most to them. We share trusted data. So one of the things we've been doing since we released the results of this report in April of 2021 is sharing these insights with who we can. So it's thrilling to be able to share this with you in person. We are doing this with other entities across the state. So we share this information. And we also hope that the information can support work that you're already doing, that it can give you, some of these things may be, not necessarily new or surprising to you, but they can provide kind of external validation for things that you're saying or doing that you might want to reference. Or maybe it's inspiring, maybe something in this data surprised you and you said, oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe we need to look more into that and maybe we need to see what we might want to engage on in terms of doing this. So our theory of change really is listening to Arizona's, providing that data to others and inspiring changes in policy and practice and investments in our state, and really building momentum and inspiring further action among leaders and communities. So that's our overall objective with this report. As I mentioned, just a reminder, we are making our own contribution to the Arizona We Want through our education, workforce, and civic engagement programs. And I'd love the opportunity sometime to share more about those, because I think some of those, especially in the workforce and education arena, might be especially of interest to you as a chamber in terms of sharing that information. So, one of the asks that we have when we present this is, if you are inspired by this, we can provide you digital copies of our report. And also, I'm not sure if we've provided your board with hard copies, because we have beautiful, let me just wave it at you, beautiful hard copies of our report that I would love to provide each of you. We made many, many copies because we want to spread it broadly. So Catalina, maybe we'll talk afterwards in case you'd like to do that. But so sharing, what are opportunities, sharing the findings of our report. I think we could consider, more opportunities for us to share data with each other in our respective communities and developing community conversations. We have a whole effort with community conversations where we bring data to communities that's specifically relevant to that community for them to see if they want to grab onto something and take some action or make some decisions. And as I said, these data are really important in terms of informing policy practice and investments, whether they be foundations, businesses, the government, across the board. And we do collaborate across our state with through our own programs, but also with others too. So for example, the Northern Arizona Council of Governments has incorporated the Arizona progress meters into their economic planning document. And so there's different ways of building on what we know. So what I would like to do now is conclude my remarks, and I'll stop sharing my screen and just open up, for any questions you might have. I very much appreciate your time and interest this morning and would love to have a little bit of a conversation. So let me see if I can stop sharing the screen. There we go. So I don't know, Catalina, do you want to, I can look at the chat for questions, or what's the best way to handle the Q&A?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Francis. Really great information today. We will go ahead and open it up for questions. You could enter them in the Q&A or in our chat, or if you want to raise your hand, I could go ahead and unmute you as well. And you could ask Dr. Francis directly. So we have some time for that.
Great. And you know, I thought, I don't know if he's able to speak or if it's just through the chat, but I would love to invite my colleague Orlando to add to anything that I said, or I see that Orlando,
definitely.
thank you so much for posting the link to the Gallup Arizona project. But Orlando, I don't know if there's anything any kind of extra spin you'd like to put on what I said, or invitations to this group. I'd love to give you that opportunity.
Thank you, Sybil. Hi, this is Orlando Cáceres, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this presentation. As it was mentioned, I was with the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for 4 or 5 years as the Director of Business Development, working with different brands and partners and community organizations on membership and MOUs and ways that we would work as the Chamber has always done. I did drop the link to both our progress meters on the chat and the full report download, so you can access all several hundred pages of the report digitally, and we can coordinate directly with the Chamber on getting some hard copies over to the Chamber as needed. So
And Orlando, say a little bit about what you do with the CFA.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I am on the workforce development side of the initiatives here at CFA, and I'm part of a Walmart funded opportunity that focuses on retail careers, frontline roles in retail. And the initiative was something that was unique to CFA and hadn't been done in the state of Arizona previously. And we started with a landscape study to understand, again, through data, what was the state of retail and the employment. We found that it was the 3rd largest sector in Maricopa County, 4th in the state of Arizona. So government and healthcare are the 2 largest sectors, and then retail. And the main focus of our work is to try to accelerate the way frontline roles and careers advance through career paths in retail. And we do that by helping employers and workforce partners and organizations connect and identify opportunities for retention, upskilling, professional development, and creating advancement opportunities. And we have partnerships with about 15 plus large employers, from Walmart down to the size of Ace and Del Sol Furniture and several other brands. And we started with Maricopa County, did that for about 3 or 4 years, and now have expanded into rural communities or communities outside of Maricopa County, including Coconino County, Flagstaff, Yuma County, City of Yuma, Pima County, Sahuarita, Green Valley, and a few other smaller communities throughout the state. And happy to share more of that information. If anybody is interested, I'll drop my email on the chat as well, so that if anybody has an interest in getting details about that initiative or any other contact with CFA, I can be the point of contact.
Thank you so much, Orlando. I always, it's sort of like your children. You don't want to confess which one you favor, but this retail works is kind of a sentimental favorite for me. If you had told me a few years ago that we would be deeply involved in a retail initiative, I would probably not have believed you, because I think, like so many people, we underestimate and undervalue the role of the retail sector in our economy. And I think not just that, but also, I don't know how many of you, but I know I started off in retail and learned so many skills as a frontline, service person. And I think we don't take enough advantage of the skills that people develop in those roles to really develop them and then help people advance. And so that's really the philosophy behind this initiative. And I think what's interesting is when the pandemic hit, we became very popular because the retailers were coming to us asking for help about how to come together and figure out how to solve some of the challenges that they had. But yeah, it's a really fascinating and important project. So thanks for walking through that, Orlando. Okay, great. Well, happy to answer some questions.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions in the chat box. Stephen Lopez, who's on our Datos committee, you mentioned polarization earlier. Has that been a challenge in effectively getting this message across to elected leadership? So
thank you for asking about elected leadership. I mentioned that CFA is a nonpartisan organization, and so for many years really avoided even getting at all involved because we didn't want to touch that kind of third rail. I think we feel that we are able to really to approach legislators now in this nonpartisan way, because we're partisans of what Arizonans want. And so there's nothing political about that. We're just delivering information. So we have been much more proactive in reaching out to legislators, both at the state level and as well as our US senators. So I've been really pleased that we've distributed the report to every single legislator. We've had meetings with some of them. We have offered briefings to every single one of them. I'm hoping that we will also be briefing the candidates for the governor's race. And so it's really kind of in the early stages. I can't say that we've had any issues there yet, but I'm very excited about the opportunity. And they all seem very interested in these findings. And I hope that we're able to maintain this nonpartisan approach, because I think that helps people hear what we have to say. So we're working away at that. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Am I still on mute? Oh,
yeah, no, you're right there, Orlando.
Yeah. So I'll plug in one more call to action. I know that the chamber does have several members that are retail business owners, whether they're small mom and pop or larger operations, small medium-sized businesses. And Retail Works has been doing outreach to some of the organizations that are members of the chamber, but we definitely cannot get to everybody by outreach traditional ways. So we definitely want to hear from you all if there is a retail member that has a brick and mortar operation where you have employees that are assisting customers coming into your place of business. We do have support, training, capacity building, and several other programs that might interest you and be of assistance, whether it is for filling skill gaps or identifying ways for your organization to function in a way that promotes the career paths that you offer, or getting just support from other partners in the community that we've identified that have those resources either at no cost to your organization or subsidized. So an open invitation if you're a retail business owner and want to connect one-on-one about what we can do as far as our Retail Works Arizona program.
Thank you so much, Orlando. Yes, we love opportunities to partner. I see a question from Alika Kumar. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, about the idea of doing a similar type of survey for businesses. There's a couple of, first of all, I think that's a really cool idea. A couple of things. One is, we do offer the opportunity to any organization, as an organization, to complete the survey. If you like, you'll need a special code, and we can provide you an analysis of the responses relative to your own members as an organization, which might be an interesting thing to do. In addition to that, I think it would be interesting to explore the opportunity to collaborate on some kind of survey of businesses, more broadly in the state, not just your members. So I think that would be an interesting conversation. We're very open to that kind of idea. So happy to continue that conversation. Other questions? Oh, someone's asking me to put up the slide prior to civic engagement and leadership. Okay, I can try that. In the meantime, are there other questions while I look for that? Let me just. I'm sorry, it was the slide before what? Before civic engagement and leadership. Okay, which one was that? Do you mean on the environment? Is that the one?
I believe it's this one.
Yeah, she just confirmed on the chat.
So this one on the environment? Sorry, I'm sort of clicking. I'm in so many screens now trying to figure it out.
Yeah, Alika confirmed that's the one that she was interested in.
Okay, was there a question about that one, or you just wanted to take a look at it?
I could go ahead and unmute Alika. Alika, if you want to ask Dr. Francis, you can do so.
Hi, Dr. Francis. Thank you so much. This is a very, very encouraging report that you have. This was the slide that I was looking at, that I was trying to capture. This is the information I was looking for, and I'd love to collaborate with you on the business aspects.
Great. Maybe Orlando, can you make sure that we follow up?
Yes, I know Alika very well. We work together, so I will coordinate.
Great. And then I'm happy to send these slides. Catalina, I can send them to you if that makes the most sense. We can send you this. Great. Any other questions? Someone told me the other day, you need to have a very long pause when you ask for questions, so to make sure that people who have it on the tip of their tongue and say it's all, just wait another little bit. Okay, well, it looks like we've exhausted you. So,
Well,
again, I want to thank Monica. Thank you so much. I know you're probably in your rental car now, and you're just amazing to join us remotely. And I appreciate all of you and your participation. So thank you so much. I see someone's requesting speaker. So Orlando, if you can see that and follow up, that would be great too. So thank you all so much. It's been such a pleasure to be before you. And I really look forward to opportunities to partner in any way that we can. And so we're very open to that, as you can see. And just reach out to Orlando. I think he'll be our go-to person here. I think that way we can make sure to follow up on everything. So Orlando, I don't know if there's a way to capture these chat questions or not, but so I will say thank you and turn it back to you, Catalina.
Thank you, Dr. Francis. Yes, on behalf of the AZHCC, we want to thank you for your time and for your presentation, and we'll send today's slides info in the post email, so in our post event email. So okay, yeah, thank you so much.
Do that. Oh, so you have the slides already. That's right. So you can just send them out. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. And thanks, Orlando, for being with us too. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.